Today, I'm ranking every single explosive in Fortnite. There are 16 in total. And we got to start with the very worst one at number 16, the Paper Bomb Kunai. This was a mythic added in collaboration with the Naruto skins coming to the game, and it is easily one of the worst mythics ever added, let alone worst items ever added. You could stack up to 6 of them, and it did a whopping 35 damage. It was really bad. It did not do the Naruto collaboration justice, especially if you compare it to the other mythics that the other animes got. I just don't understand why it was so bad, and I will forever be hurt by them doing Naruto so dirty. At number 15, we have the Recycler. This was a fun one. It created a lot of different memes and clips, but it's a little bit confusing. It came out in Chapter 2 Primal. They added it in the middle of the season, and you could vacuum up mats using this and shoot them out as a projectile. The projectile only did 75 damage, and it was very hard to land the shot. You could also just try to like vacuum up the players themselves. You would do like 1 damage at a time, which was nothing. It just wasn't very practical to pick this up. There were a lot of other things that you could pick up instead, and no one ever took this gun seriously. It was definitely just a meme gun. And at number 14, we have the Anvil Rocket launcher. This one had one specific purpose. It was anti-vehicle. That was the only real reason to use it, because outside of that, trying to hit players with the Anvil Rocket was very, very difficult. The thing is, it was very obvious where an Anvil Rocket was going to land. The players could move out of the way because it had a huge charge up time. You could never really use this in like close quarter or quick combat. You had to like kind of set up the shot. But when it did lock onto vehicles, it did 600 damage to vehicles and was a good way to take people out of cars and vehicles as they were running away, because it would track them extremely well, including choppers, which were in the season when this thing was in the game. It was also sometimes used in 0 build tournaments because people are usually stacked up on hills and in bunkers, and they, forcing them to move off of a bunker for an incoming Anvil Rocket was kind of useful, but that was a very niche situation to use this. And if you did manage to hit somebody with this, it would do 100 damage, which isn't that bad, but isn't great either. At number 13, we have the Big Chill. This was a different version of the Snowball Launcher, an exotic that would shoot out chill grenades, which did not do any damage. It would only give players the icy feet and push them back a little bit, which is just not very practical. This was really just used for memes, and the only reason that I'm putting this a little bit higher than the other ones is that you could give players the icy feet effect through builds. So there were some situations in tournaments where everybody's kind of inside different tarps and builds where players on the high ground were using the Big Chill. They were shooting down at other trios on the low ground, and those competitive players would start sliding back into the storm and just losing all control of their characters and end up dying. So it really had only one good use scenario, and that was really only in competitive events, because using it in a regular game was really just for memes. At number 12, we have the Cybertron cannon. This one was just meh. Like, it had a huge charge up time. It only did 110 damage. You could only shoot 2 before having to reload, and it would also knock you back when you shot, which some people use to their advantage, but a lot of people have fallen to their death trying to use this thing on high ground. It made for some very funny moments, but it was in a pretty bad season, Wilds, and it had a very long charge time. After using it, you had to wait 30 seconds to shoot it again. No one really used this besides the first few days of the season, to be honest. At number 11, we have the Exotic Burst Quad Launcher. And this might be the only exotic that's actually worse than the original item. So it's the same as the Quad Launcher, except it shoots in bursts of 2. And it also does less damage, but it did do decent structure damage, and that was about it. The thing about this is just, it makes it awkward to use. You end up shooting yourself on accident, and you're just going through rocket ammo without really getting much success. Compared though to number 10 on this list, the regular quad launcher, you at least had a little bit more control over the shots. You had 4 shots before you hit the reload. It's like 4 weak rocket launcher shots, but it had its use cases. It was a good way to put pressure on players, knock them out of their builds, even, jumping into people's boxes by using the explosion. The only thing is that it only did 80 damage, and it took a very long time to reload, a full 5 seconds to reload, which meant you weren't really going to be reloading this in the middle of a heated battle. The bullet drop on these things were kind of crazy, so you couldn't use them long range. You had to use them in medium to close range. So it was decent to apply pressure in the close range, but that was about it. At number 9, we have the Thunder Spears. These were actually very cool. They had a very unique animation. They came out with the ODM gear in Chapter 4 with the Attack on Titan collab. And obviously with the ODM gear, these things were pretty decent because the ODM gear would allow you to float up for like a second to throw out the spear, and you could kind of get unique angles with the spear. But if you were trying to use these without the ODM gear, it was a little bit mid. It did 100 damage, which was pretty good, and it did a ton of structure damage. And the area of effect was actually pretty small, so it was kind of hard to actually land the shot unless you hit it really close to the player or directly hit them with it. But it was a good way to apply pressure to people who were boxed up, and if you actually comboed these with the ODM gear, it was kind of useful. At number 8, we have the Proximity Grenade Launcher. This is actually a very decent weapon, especially when you're fighting good players, because a lot of the times good players will be, peeking you from behind cover, whether they're sitting at the top of their ramp or hiding around the corner or using a tree in zero build. This thing can do damage around corners because you can just shoot in that direction, and once it's near them, it will explode and do damage. Now, it only does 67 damage, which isn't a lot, but it's a good way to open up a fight, and a lot of people do not expect you to have a proximity grenade launcher, so they're usually not defending against it. When these came out, people would also use multiple of them to actually spam grenades at people and apply a lot of pressure to their builds and do a ton of damage. And at number 7, we got to give it to the OG, the classic guided missile launcher. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm not talking about the guided missile launcher that's in the game right now. I don't know what that weapon is. That is not the guided missile launcher. The OG one was actually so much better. You could self rocket ride with this thing, and you could rocket ride your teammates, which you can't do with the current version. It was very easy to control. You could navigate, turn around corners, and do all kinds of crazy maneuvers very seamlessly. And if you compare it to the current version, that one has very limited control. I did over 100 damage on impact, so it was very lethal. This created for a ton of awesome clippable moments, but just in general, it was just very, very strong and useful while I was in the game. And of course, there were some bugs, so Epic removed it for over 7 years. And then when they brought it back, it was not the same. At number 6, we have the explosive Goo Gun. This gun was a lot of fun. It was very memey. It got added in Chapter 3, but it was really, really good against people who were boxed up, and it did a ton of damage when you actually landed the goo on players. A lot of structure damage, very fun to use. And this one's definitely a fan favorite, but a lot of people were very happy when this thing got removed from the game. Now for our top 5. At number 5, we got to go with the classic. The classic RPG, the rocket launcher. This is the true OG. When people think of explosives in Fortnite, this is usually the first thing that comes to mind. It does over 100 damage, over 450 structure damage. Just a very, very solid weapon with a reasonable reload time as well. And you can't forget rocket riding being invented through the rocket launcher. It's really good at applying pressure. It's good at doing damage. It's just overall a really good weapon to have. And I'm glad it's still in OG and also in reload. At number 4, I'm giving it to the grenade launchers. Now, you might be wondering, why are you ranking the grenade launchers a little bit higher than the rocket launchers? And that's because the grenade launchers were for the skillful explosive users. While the rocket launcher, anybody can use, the grenade launcher takes some skill. Whether it's using the grenades to bounce them off of ramps so that they can land right on top of players, or building a little pocket to sink the grenades on top of so that if someone's boxed up underneath it, they end up going down, or knowing the lineups where you can shoot players from 80 meters out and the grenades would explode right on impact. There were so many unique ways to use the grenade launcher or the snowball launcher. I'll just kind of bunch them up in here to catch players off guard, to do damage through structures and around corners in ways that only the real skillful explosive users could do. They were also a lot better at applying pressure because you can just keep shooting them, and you can use multiple grenade launchers to do a serious amount of pressure. You guys remember the double and triple grenade launcher days? It was crazy. I personally have died to a grenade launcher way more than the rocket launcher because it's a lot easier to defend against a rocket launcher compared to the grenade launcher. That's why it's at number 4. And at number 3, we actually have a new item, the exotic Lawless Shockwave rocket launcher. This is a very fun item they added to the game. It only does 50 damage, but you don't take damage from the explosion. So you can use it to send yourself flying across the map, hit some insane shots, reposition, and you can also use it to reposition your opponents. If somebody gets hit with this, they're flying in a different direction, and you can usually put them out of place and end up finishing them off, or even sending them into the storm using this rocket launcher so that they end up dying in the storm. This thing has a lot of different ways to use it. It does 400 structure damage, which is very solid, and it also has a very fast reload time compared to the other explosives on this list. Now for number 2, we have the sticky grenade launcher. The sticky grenade launcher makes you an absolute menace at Fortnite. It's the only item where any player who knows how to use it can take down some of the best players in the world. And I know this personally because I used the sticky grenade launcher against pro player Bucky back in chapter 4, and I'll have the clip playing. You can see just how easy it is to apply pressure with it and use it with your shotgun to do damage even when they're fully boxed up. I have died to this thing a lot of times. It is very tilting. It is a very powerful weapon with a very fast reload time as well. And for that reason alone, I got to put it at number 2. It's just way too good. And at number 1, we have one of the best mobility items in the game. I got to give it to the Shockwave grenade launcher. This thing allowed you to carry so many shockwaves. You could fly through the air, fly through people's builds, send people flying into the storm. It had a lot of different uses, from rotations to aggressive pushes to W keying to repositioning your opponents or yourself. It was super useful in almost every single scenario, and for that reason alone, I gotta put it at the number 1 of all the explosives. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree with this list in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.